Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. We'll get started in a few minutes. We're just going to let everyone join and get settled in. In the meantime, feel free to introduce yourself uh, to everyone in today's chat, as Alice has just said. Um, and thank you for joining so promptly. Hey, everyone. Thanks for joining. We are just going to give a few more minutes to allow people to join. We have about 33 of you now, so thank you so much for joining so promptly. As we've stated in the chat, please introduce yourself to everyone, where you're from, maybe a fun fact about you as well.
Tom, I do like St Albans. That's where I met my wife.
Yeah, I remember talking about this.
Fond memories of St Albans.
Yeah, it's a lovely
I've
place.
forgotten. Love
Ah,
Chicago and Boca Raton in Florida. Chicago, been to Chicago many years ago. India, that's a good broad. I might have to stick a needle in a pin in the map to try and find that one. Chicago, Barcelona. I love Barcelona. I do like Chicago, but it was cold when I was there. Um, there we go. Never been to Los Angeles. I thought it said for a moment Tarzan. Sorry, Todd. And San Francisco. A lot of people getting up early in the US.
yeah.
And hello from in Germany. I do like Germany. I do love Berlin.
Well, we've got a incredible distribution of people across the
Yeah.
world today.
Costa Rica. I think I'm sorry to everybody so far, but Costa Rica is hands down the place that I would love to go. And apologies to everybody else. India's close, but Costa Rica, oh,
Yes,
not
I
the same.
Costa Rica a few years ago for my honeymoon with my wife, and it was incredible.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it was
I'm
incredible,
envious, very envious.
incredible place. Thank you, Bridget, for dragging yourself out of bed for this topic. I agree. Hopefully today will make it all worth it. Thank you for attending.
And Todd, thanks for that. I love that piece of trivia about Tarzan and Tarzana and Burris. Fantastic.
Wow. Every day's a school day. Thanks, Todd.
Yeah, exactly. I
Uh,
love trivia as well. So that's got.
okay, I think we have a good amount of people now. Thank you for joining and giving us some fun facts to pass the time where we allowed everyone to jump from their previous meeting into this meeting. So thanks everyone for joining today. We're here to talk around really how do we elevate HR and leverage AI to rewrite the rules of workforce strategy. There's been so much disruption over the last few years when it comes to AI, generative AI, agentic workflows. We want to talk a little bit about how the market is changing and also how technology is helping organizations solve this problem in a more novel way than it has ever been solved before. Um, Before we get started, we'll do a few introductions and then we'll have a nice poll to kind of get you all engaged and kind of started. So I'm Tom. I'm the VP of product for Beamery. Um, Very happy to be here today to talk about a topic I've been working on for the last 4 years. For those who don't know, Beamery is a task and skill intelligence platform that helps organizations understand their workforce, understand their jobs, and essentially helps them make the best talent decisions, whether that be hiring, restructuring, um, and reskilling. And hand you over to David for an introduction.
Thanks, Tom. I'm David Perring. I'm Chief Insights Officer at Fosway Group. Fosway Group are a boutique analyst. We focus purely on HR systems, covering the employee life cycle from hiring through to exiting, if I can put it in that way. And I have a very privileged position of sitting on the fence, talking to great customers and talking to great providers to understand what's really working in organizations and what's really being transformative, and getting to comment on that as I go through. So without any of the heavy responsibility of either owning a product or delivering out um, to customers as well, or my internal clients. So yeah, I'm a very lucky person, and very privileged with the conversations that I have. So, and hopefully we'll be able to share some of our insights today around what we're finding out, your journey as corporate buyers and users of technology in your journey with AI so far. We've been doing some research recently about that.
Thank you, David. And just a reminder, we do have a Q&A session towards the end. So please, as we're going, if you have any questions that come up that you would like to ask either of us, please dot them down into the Q&A part of the Zoom, and we will have some time at the end to answer any questions from anyone. Um, but with that, I wanted to start with a poll. So before we get into David's section, so you should all see a poll appear. And really, this is just a one to get us kind of started. Really want to understand just how ready do you feel your organization is to tackle the future? And this is a very nebulous topic, right? This is a very, very high level question, but there's so much change happening with AI that has happened over the last few years and will continue to happen. But I just wanted to understand how ready you feel your organization is to really be ready for how AI is transforming the work you do, but also is transforming your workforce in general. Be very interested
It's,
to see the results.
but genuinely, it's such a fascinating subject, right? And I think I'm trying to think, Tom, from your point of view, when do you think AI really peered over the parapet and looked at HR and said, I'm coming? When do you think people started to recognize that? Do you reckon it's like the last 3 years, 2 years?
It's interesting because I think when we've been talking about and going down not going down too much of a
Yeah,
rabbit hole here, but like
yeah,
when we've been thinking about AGI and kind of like the point where AI is going to be more involved in our lives, I think we all kind of expected it to be um, a kind of a point in time, like a moment. And
yeah,
I think it's been a lot more gradual. I think
yeah,
we
yeah,
had really the big pivot has really come from ChatGPT 3 that released
yeah,
um, a few years ago. But I think
yeah,
since then it's been a more gradual change.
yeah, yeah,
And I think
yeah, yeah,
we are seeing organizations be starting to be more purposeful around how to use AI in their day-to-day working. And I think now it's becoming more and more of a disruptor on a day-to-day basis. So I don't think it has been a single point in time. I think it's been a
yeah,
gradual change. I mean, hey,
yeah,
I
yeah,
work in
yeah,
product. I've noticed it
yeah.
changed my organization over the last few years. So yeah,
Yeah,
that's kind of my perspective.
yeah. No, I don't. And I love that because it's like I think that what people within HR may not have realized is that organizations like yours have probably been playing with AI in some form or another 2016, 2017, 2018. And what you see now is based on foundations of work and work and work. And it takes a while to come to product, people to buy it. But and then there's all the innovation, ChatGPT 3, amongst other things, agentic now, which disrupt it along the way. But I'm fascinated now to see what the results are. Sorry,
Yeah,
I'm...
great.
Oh
Cool.
wow.
Wow. Okay.
Wow. Yeah, yeah. I love this. And again, I'd love to know what people think a bit more about. So if you said yes, why is that? And please feel free to share a little bit of insight in the chat. But equally, in terms of the no's, it's like, yeah, this is a long journey. And it is, I've got some slides a little bit later on, which I think will start to sort of pick up on some of this point of where people are in their journey. And we were talking with Tom over the last few weeks to sort of pull this together. And there are some interesting things that I've had feedback from some of our analysts who work, for example, in talent acquisition about actually, can you sit and wait to do anything with AI? And his answer, and I'll come on to this a little bit later, is very much, you probably can't now. The world has sped up a bit too much, even in the last 6 months. So without further ado, let's reflect a little bit, because I know we sort of reflect a little bit on where's AI been, but there was this guy called Klaus Schwab, and maybe you've heard of him, but he was the founder and executive chairman of the World Economic Forum. And he wrote a really interesting book in 2016, which was, that's 10 years ago, practically, right? In 6 months' time, it's going to be 10 years ago, which was called The Fourth Industrial Revolution. And it picked up on these themes, and some of these were a little bit sort of on the fringe, maybe they're emerging, things like AI, machine learning, maybe it was more called then, things around quantum computing, blockchain, robotics. And I think if it's, I'm not, again, I'm really curious, and if you're in a room, I'd ask you to put your hand up to say, who buys their groceries online? Because if you buy your groceries online, the likelihood is some of that's been packed by robots already. And there are organizations that used to be online food, almost supermarkets, who distributed your food for you, and that was their main line of business, who now their main line of business is selling the platforms that enable everybody to be an online logistics distributor using robotics. And it's fascinating, right? Where this is going. But he picked up on things like the Internet of Things, biotech engineering, AR, VR, and one of my personal favorites, 3D additive manufacturing, where you print your product. There's some amazing things that have been going on in that area. But you talked about the fourth industrial revolution, and that's 10 years ago. To some extent, we're in the middle of what he said is happening or should be happening. And what's fascinating to me is when we think about that sort of, are you ready for AIs? Are you ready for all these other things? All these things come as a convergence. So I was speaking 2 years ago to an additive manufacturing provider who were shipping out their kit to China. They were training their new operatives, even though the kit hadn't arrived in the plant, using AR and VR and using blockchain to track people's progress through their learning. And you just think, wow, there's a whole wave of new innovation, and there is the risk to some extent, if your organization isn't ready, that it gets left behind. And that's the big tension maybe for most organizations, is how future-proof are we? And many CEOs aren't sure that they are. But equally, from an HR point of view, AI has emerged over the last 8 years to be seen as a critical driver of HR's future success. You can see the sort of kick along of maybe less than 20% or maybe 20 to 30% thought it was something that was going to be foundational to their future success. That shot up over the last 2 years to be up to 40%. And our latest results that are coming through for 2025, when we survey HR professionals, is pushing that line even higher. It's turning a little bit hockey stick. So the realization that AI and machine learning intelligent support agents is critical to future success is here in a way that it's almost challenging the success of HR to say, actually, we're greater employer brand. Actually, to be a strategic influencer, we want to be great at that. To some extent, you can't be a great employer brand and you can't deliver strategic influencing if you don't have machine learning and the intelligent insight to drive that, which is maybe why that green line at the top has been so steady, in that actually the understanding is we are entering an intelligence age where you need really good quality data and analytics. But AI is foundational, right? And this is what you tell us as professionals within HR. And already, and again, maybe this is a question we could have asked at the beginning, nearly all of you experience some impact from AI in their HR function today, whether that's from functionality that's already embedded in the systems that you're using, or what we hear some people do when they haven't got access to that is they will cut the employee feedback from the employee survey out of the system, anonymize it, and then put it through ChatGPT to get a summary, right? I'm not sure how many HR and business and security policies people break in doing that, but that's where people are at, right? And we've seen this steady move to the right. And again, it shifts again for 2025, and I've got the data to share with you, but we're in the middle of the survey at the moment. But this slow, progressive evolution of AI impacting the HR function. And there's a little bit of a wobble in terms of a great deal, but in terms of a moderate amount, and quite a lot, you're almost up, well, you're up to 66% almost, right? And that's quite a significant number of disruption already in today. And that's not across every function. It does affect and impact different silos, whether in learning, whether in talent acquisition, whether in employee listening, in different ways. There's different niche elements of functionality. But that's one of the things that sort of maybe stands out, is this sense of gradual and ongoing evolution. And but when you ask people how mature are they in their adoption of AI, maybe this comes back to that 50-50 that we were talking about. Actually, in reality, only 20% think they're quite advanced with what they're doing with AI. Again, that is fixed on particular niche scenarios, but the remainder are either getting started, right? So if I said people who are getting started plus those who are getting moving, you're about half who just got started or think they're advanced. Everybody else has either not started at all, and actually there's only 1% who think it's not applicable for the future. But those who are sort of thinking, well, we want to do something, but we haven't begun, those who are exploring, again, turns out to be about 50%. So in some ways, it's very gratifying for me personally that you had a bit of 50-50 split, because that's what our data has been telling us for the last couple of years, right? And it's a slow move, but the incremental value that people are getting is real, and it's there, and it's growing in organizations. So when we ask people, are you going to use AI more? Again, this was from 2024-25, so this is about maybe 9 months old, and the latest data is again pushing this in the right direction, is 80% plan to expand their use of AI. And to some extent, the story's moved away from why should I do it into when, or why wouldn't you do it in terms of its adoption. And the reason behind that is the value that people are getting from their adoption of AI. And ultimately, where the AI adoption, and it's been probably at the keenest in parts of learning, parts of the employee listening, through the natural language processing and summary at scale, but also in terms of skills-based organizations, skills and talent hiring. Those is where people are starting to find greater operational efficiency and effectiveness. They're looking to speed up processes and support more intelligent decision-making. And become more analytical, intelligence-led in their approach, right? Now, at the moment, most of the benefits seem to be in that efficiency zone, where people are trying to maybe do more with less, create faster processes, and actually have a lighter operational footprint. But I think there is something that's coming, which is really fundamental in terms of what is the future role of HR, especially if automation takes over more of your role. And I'll flick a little bit further on through the stats that I've got here to sort of maybe paint this picture out, because ultimately what we're seeing is this sense of actually there are waves of AI innovation. We've just profiled 40 providers in the talent acquisition space, and we're also doing a similar sort of number in cloud HR, talent people success. The learning analysis that we've done is just landed today, where we used a long wish list that we put to vendors to say, what's live, what's coming in the next few months, what's coming by the next half year, what's coming next year, and what have you got planned but which hasn't got a date, and what are you not planning at all? And we did a really comprehensive wish list of all the things that we thought would be amazingly transformative to different parts of the particular process life cycle. So in talent acquisition, attraction, acquisition, candidate management, new starter, acceleration management, and then any cross-platform features that would enable that to be more effective across the organization. And already by this point in 2025, we've got almost a third of features that we could imagine live in customers. And by the time you get to 2026, or probably by the end of 2026, you're likely to have around 60% of the functionality that you could imagine impacting candidates, recruiters, managers, strategic HR advisors in how they work, changing the way that we recruit. So we see this as waves coming, and even by the end of next year, it's going to be almost pretty much a done deal. So by the time you get to 3 years, most of the things we can imagine are going to be in play. Now, that has some pretty significant implications if it's speeding things up. Now, what we've asked HR is, how much faster do you think AI is going to be able to do things, or how much of the workload do you think AI is going to be able to take on if it's growing this level of functionality so quickly? And we asked the simple question of, by 2030, how much of HR's role in organizations today do you believe will be automated or be made redundant by AI and still be effective, right? And that still be effective is an important part, because you just don't want to make it AI and it not work. But the headline really is that 3 in 4 HR professionals, 75%, think up to half of HR's role could be automated and still be effective. Now, I'm not sure if that necessarily fits your expectation, but there are people in here, that sort of 20%, who think actually between 51% and 75% of what I do today could be done by AI and still be effective. Now, if we say it's half, right, and I'm going to go with the blue line as a neat, easy number to think about, that means that with the help of AI, I've completed all the work I needed to do by Wednesday or midday on Wednesday. Half of it's done. So the question is, what are you going to be doing? And I think that's something that you need to think about really seriously is, what is your role? Are we just going to see HR teams shrink and shrink and shrink because actually we only needed half of them to do what we do today? Or do you need to think differently about the role that you play within organizations and the nature of what your role in organizations is? Because my view is that whilst it would be nice to spend some time sat on a beach looking at flamingos, I don't think that your CFO or anybody in your organization is going to pay for you to do that. They might pay for you to exit, but they're not going to pay for you to be sat on a beach for 2.5 days while they're working. So if it's 50% that's going, what are you going to be doing? And I think there's really some interesting fundamental questions that you need to ask about. What's your role in the value chain of your organization? What's the role in growing the effectiveness of teams? What is your role in evolving the organization's strategy as a business, but also its people strategy? What about how it evolves its services? How the company creates its culture and identity, and how that impacts profitability? How you think about your contribution to quality, excellence, sustainability, and how you become the part of the voice of the organization that keeps it honest on treating its people right, so that it treats its customers better. And I think there is that role in organizations that's really important to think about now, so that the technology doesn't overtake you in the future. And what we've sort of maybe see is this sense of growing an intelligence-led HR function, which thinks about how it uses the workforce and people intelligence to energize work, to make sure people are motivated, resilient, engaged, passionate, have great leadership, build connection, have a really strong shared sense of purpose, are great at delivering feedback and upskilling and reskilling to cope with the changes that are coming in a myriad of things that are going to be happening over the next 3 or 4 years, and provide the well-being growth mindset that mean that, do you know what, no matter how you move the goalposts, I'm always ready for the fight. And I'm really ready to go. And I'm infectious in how I bring that to life, as well as all the things around actually in terms of optimizing work. Have we got the right people in the right roles, being the best they can be, in the right organizational structure, with the right skills, with the right mindset, flexibility and agility and adaptation and innovation that enable us to rethink work and working and deliver the products that are needed for tomorrow. So all those things come together, and ultimately, you can't really do those well unless you have the intelligence to support that. And for as much as AI is a vehicle for automation, actually it's our ability to mine the insights and gather the intelligence to create the storytelling that enables us to influence the way the organization moves forward, which is going to be key. And you might say, well, David, why are you saying that? I'm saying that because when we've asked you as HR leaders what you think the impact of AI will be over the next 2 to 5 years, you say it's about HR resource allocation, but actually it's about all resource allocation. It's about relocating budget into HR tech and people moving that direction. It's focusing on new AI management to say, actually, how does this work? And then thinking about relocation of roles and reduction in headcount. Maybe not so, right? There's a little bit on the edge, and I'll give you that. But equally, from an AI's point of view, we see you say that in terms of the processes that are being most impacted by AI, it's the analytics and workforce intelligence, which then almost filters through every other action that HR can do, whether that's recruiting, people operations, learning development, skills capability, onboarding. All these things become seismically changed because of the people intelligence that we have. To maybe think that we don't have the level of fidelity of insight is really important. But just to wrap up, right, I'll try to take us a little bit of a journey. Ultimately, the level of change that's happening in organizations is driven by our people. Their ability to innovate is what enables us to change the context of our work, and to some extent the innovations that come down, the pressures that we face from environmental pressures and societal pressures will change the purpose of organizations. But it's our ability to align people around performance and create frictionless resourcing into work around that purpose, our ability to continuously upskill our people to enable them to be the innovators, which change the context and change the purpose, which is really key. And this is something that we've sort of pulled and maybe normalized for ordinary organizations from something that was created by Nick at NASA. They talk about missions, but I think there's something that really says workforce intelligence is really crucial to the future success of HR. Not just because you need the intelligence of understanding of the analytics, but because intelligence enables you to make stronger, more transparent, democratized, and scalable decisions for everybody, from employee all the way up. And when I get to talk about the theory, it's Tom who's been doing the heavy lifting, of how you bring this to life in HR.
Thank you, David. And before I jump to my slides, a few things to reflect on, and thank you for all those insights. Lots of people were commenting on how they're going to take insights back to their teams.
Yeah,
So that's really great. I think, I think in summary, you're really saying that there's going to be disruption, but that creates a huge opportunity for HR, right? And I think we see that
massively.
across the board, where
Yeah,
HR can be the strategic advisor to the business. They can be the
yeah,
ones guiding the business through this change and using that people and job data
yeah,
to enable them to make more effective decisions around not just how is AI going to impact their workforce, but how is, the economy, how is the world, how is
yeah.
disruption, how is new competitors going to impact our the workforce as well. So I think there's a huge opportunity there, and I also I love Bridget's comment around
Yeah,
the fact that employees want to speak to a
yeah,
person. And look, Bridget, we hear this as well from our customers that we deal with, that say that actually one opportunity here is there is a world where AI can take away some of the more complex admin tasks away from HR, so HR can get to back to being what HR are good
mm,
at, which is relationships
yeah,
and talking to candidates and talking to people and dealing with those challenging situations
yeah,
at a more personal level, right? And I think they're probably the biggest two opportunities that the people and HR function teams have right now is, being having more relationships and also being more
mm,
strategic advisors.
yeah, yeah. Very true. Because I think lots of the decisions that are quite often made today are based on a little bit of a guesstimate, an educated guesstimate, but the fidelity of insight that people can now base those decisions around is becoming exponentially more impactful. And then the transparency between activating individuals in a way that they maybe weren't able to see the opportunities that were around them has grown off the table, have gone through the roof over
Yeah.
the last probably 3 or 4 years in a way.
Okay, so with that, we're going to do one more poll before I get to my part of the show today. So this is a little bit more detail. Uh, we've talked about what's happening in the market. I'd really like to understand from all of your perspectives, really, what are the most critical decisions that you're being asked to make right now when it comes to people and the organization, whether that be, hey, we're going through a restructure. We are still going down the journey of becoming a skills-based organization. We are looking at AI automation. We want to drive more efficiency in our organization. David talked about doing more with less. That's a common thing that's kind of coming out right now. Or there could be other things, right? Please drop that into the chat. But really interested to understand from all of you what's really uh, top of mind when it comes to some of the organizational based decisions you're trying to make today.
Tricky list, Tom,
It is a
because
tricky
I
list.
should imagine there's a few.
It's also not a
Multiple
multi-select.
tick list, isn't it?
It's
Really,
not
I'm
a
going to be able to say,
multi-select, unfortunately, Pete.
I want to choose all of the above.
Yeah, yeah. I know, I agree. It's tricky. And sometimes organizations are going through varying levels of each one of these, right? And I think they're all kind of interrelated, right? AI automation can be related to efficiency, it can be related to restructuring, right? And same with skills-based organizations can be related to efficiency and speed. So it's a little bit of a catch 22 in
There you
terms
go.
of
Yeah.
which one to select there. Um, and as we wait for that, I will jump to the next slide, talk about the problems that we see as a vendor in this space and working with, some of the largest organizations in the world around uh, just around. I'm kind of boiling it back up to that concept we talked around, which is HR being more strategic advisors, right? What are the challenges that they are trying to solve today? And really, it comes down to three things in our world. The first is actually there is a huge, obviously, there's been a rise in agentic and generative AI across the market. Um, and I think it's as me and David were talking about before everyone
Mm.
joined, it's been an acceleration and it's continued to be an acceleration. Um, we started with generative AI being used for text generation, right? But now we have agents and now we have more autonomous types of functionality that kind of exists. And it's not only what will it do within my function as a HR leader, but also what would it do across the broader workforce, how it's going to disrupt my workforce in general. And that means you have to reshape jobs, right? You may have to reshape jobs in the future. You may have to hire differently in the future. You may have to train differently in the future. Um, HR really need to be at the center of these changes, right? And that's really where we are starting to help organizations navigate that. And the other thing is traditional methods of headcount and workforce planning weren't working perfectly before. And it's interesting because we talk about a disruption of AI onto HR and AI onto your workforce. It's also worth noting that AI has disrupted us as a vendor. And we're able to now do things that we've never been able to do before because the compute has been exponential over the last few years, right? And that's allowing us to solve some of these challenges in ways in which were never able to be solved before, which is super exciting for us as a vendor and also super exciting for the market. Um, and we're still seeing companies really focusing on that. Okay, I need to understand my jobs, I understand the roles of people and technology, and quantify all that data into skills and tasks and proficiencies. Um, and I need to understand my people in the same way. And this was always traditionally something that large corporations would do by hiring consultancies and kind of going through long processes. And actually, um, it's now a foundational part of making any decision. And going back to one of David's slides earlier, data quality, top of the list and continues to be top of the list, right? And once again, I still think as an industry, we have struggled to get past that point of like, I need a clear understanding of just what's going on in my workforce, what skills I have, what tasks I have, and what are people doing. Because without that, you can't really make any decision. And so really, we're really seeing three major impacts, right? We're seeing AI agents impacting organizations in very different ways. We're seeing market disruptions, right? Or impact the and continue to impact the world, whether that be tariffs, whether that be uncertainty in the market. But fundamentally, it still comes back to that data piece. Like I need to have a good understanding of my data in order I can do anything. And talking a little bit about what we have been doing at Beamery, that's exactly why we've really built our solution around three major innovations over the last few years. The first is what we call task intelligence. Um, and I'll talk a little bit about what task intelligence is, but tasks really reveal the substance of work, its effort, its frequency, and automation potential. Um, and like the industry has been focused on skills for a number of years, and skills are still very, very important. But in order to understand how the workforce is changing in this new era, you actually need to understand work in a different way. And I think tasks are the a very good answer to that solution. The second is we've been working on what we call a digital twin technology. Now, for those that haven't heard of that concept before, manufacturing have used it for a number of years. The way that they use it historically has been when you build manufacturing plants, you essentially build a digital version of the manufacturing plant, and you understand where there are bottlenecks, and you can run different scenarios. And think about that in the way that we're doing that with organizations. We're essentially creating a digital twin of your organization. We're creating a an understanding of your jobs, an understanding of your people, and actually broken them all down into task skills. And that really allows us to model different scenarios for you and actually provide you the data that has always been quite hard to navigate. And the last one is, as I said before, we have been disrupted by agentic, and we have been thinking about actually how do we enable much more intelligent orchestration and essentially how do we enable you to get the insights you need in a much faster way than you ever have done before? And that we really think about that through the lens of reporting, insights, data. All of that is available with with natural language versus traditional methods of spreadsheets and pivoting large amounts of data. And I wanted to spend a little bit of time talking about tasks and skills because this is something that is has been bubbling up in the industry for a for 6 months or so and becoming more and more prominent. Um, I wanted to address something critical, which is skills is still really, really important. Um, but skills, I don't think, is enough to address today's challenges, right? Skills help you understand people, and they're very, very important to do that. But skills need to be grounded in the that work that needs to be done to be fully relevant. An example of this is, if I was to talk about what I do in a day-to-day basis, I would naturally talk about my role in tasks. I would say, I build roadmaps, I build strategies, I talk to customers. These are all tasks, right? There are quite different skills to be done, but they are actually tasks. And that's my work. That's my day-to-day work. And by really understanding tasks at that level, you can understand really how your organization is changing, right? Because if you think about agentic workflows, you think about AI, you think about any kind of uh, AI that will emerge over the next few years, they don't the AI doesn't necessarily perform complete jobs. It doesn't also perform skills. It does something different. It does a task, right? It's a task-based system. That's really how you think about AI. So you have to think about work through a different lens, and that task is definitely one of them. And this is a fundamental insight for you to be able to really think about how the world is changing and how to be ready for that change.
And Tom, I was just thinking at what Helen put in a comment around with machine learning roles will change, and that's the challenge we're facing now as to what that looks like in the future. What you're saying is almost that sense of if you take a task based view, you can start to understand the impact on work, you can understand the nature of the impact on roles, and how that will then impact the nature of teams and what they do as people or bots or whatever is put in between.
Yeah, I think it's once again, it's one of those things where it's you kind of talked about it quite clearly early on.
Yeah,
This is not a HR specific change. This is a
yeah,
complete transformation across the organization, right? And
yeah,
so um, even even the people building the models, even the
yeah,
data scientists, their roles are shifting and their roles are
yeah,
changing because
yeah,
roles
yeah,
are more and more able to take on more and more of their job as well, right? And so yeah, across the board, it's being disrupted.
And what Beamery are doing is effectively enabling that navigation from what are we today and what might the future look like as us.
Exactly.
Yeah, okay.
Exactly. I've got a few slides that will talk a little bit about how we do it today for everyone, so we can kind of bring a bit more
Cool.
purpose to that. So I wanted to just talk around how tasks fit in because sometimes it can end up being quite nebulous. And think about task as um, a breakdown of a job, right? So a job as a product designer, you may do multiple tasks in your day to day, and those multiple tasks may require skills in order to kind of achieve. So this is kind of a nice illustration to talk around how tasks and skills are somewhat different. And it's a really important thing because when you try and quantify work, you cannot quantify the amount of work someone does, the amount of work a role does at the skill level or at the job level. It has to be kind of somewhere in between, and that's kind of really what task allows us to do here. And I wanted to kind of talk about how we make it practical, right? So what we do here at Beamery is we use our own proprietary AI models to build essentially a data foundation of people and work in your business. Um, so essentially, we have two concepts. We take everything around your people data. We use our AI skill inference models to essentially understand your workforce. And also, at the same time, we understand all your jobs at the task level. So we essentially use our task AI translation model to essentially break down your jobs into component tasks. And that essentially creates this concept of a replication of your organization in a data form. And that allows you to very quickly and easily create profiles for your people and your work, enabling the type of intelligent workforce decisions that we talked about earlier that weren't traditionally possible. And going back to the point of HR being a strategic function that is an advisor, this is the type of data that you need at your fingertips in order to answer some really tricky questions that come up. And I want to talk through some of the questions that we can now answer with some of that data kind of in place. So imagine we've kind of gone through that process for an organization. We've kind of built that underlying data. There's a handful of scenarios that we can enable you to answer just by having that data in place. Firstly, we can help you understand how your skill and task architecture is evolving, right? So um, instead of relying on things like outdated job descriptions or stale data in spreadsheets, we'll actually give you a real-time view of all the work that people are doing in your organization, the skills they use and the tasks they perform. And that's kind of the foundation of anything we need to do. We can actually map that cost to your workforce structure. So actually, where are you spending the most across your organization by function, by role? And that enables better decision making on when to invest or optimize. We can also scan the external market for trends, how skills are shifting in demand across industries or geographic different geographies. Sorry, different markets. You gain the essentially the foresight to kind of stay ahead in that sense, and really thinking about if you're doing hiring or reskilling or strategic workforce planning, those kind of market intelligence is really important. And this is where it's really important that we're able to decouple tasks from jobs, because once you break down work into its component parts, you can actually start to think about actually what tasks are being done the most across your organization, which tasks actually have the highest automation potential, and actually how can you reorganize work not based on legacy structures, but also actually just what makes the most sense, right? And what that allows you to do, if you look at kind of the bottom half, is to actually start scenario planning for various different things, including things like automation. So actually looking at actually what tasks have the highest automation potential in your organization today, how much effort is being done on those tasks, and therefore actually where do you have opportunities for efficiency. You can actually also simplify your operating model. You can actually look at tasks that are being performed across multiple teams or organizations. And actually, what that does is that means you reduce duplication, actually clarify ownership and improve delivery. So that is a huge efficiency gain organizations get from just understanding that multiple different departments do the same type of work. Actually, should you have more centralized departments to do certain tasks versus it being distributed? And that leads on to standardizing roles, right? You can more easily standardize roles in your business, right? And that allows you to kind of be future-proofed in this kind of more dynamic world, right? Is to really think about actually how do we be more efficient? How do we get ready for AI? And actually, how do we think about redistribution of work, right? All of those things can be done once you start to understand that work at a more granular level.
And Tom, my assumption is that there's also a strong element of providing your organization overall with a competitive advantage, which in theory should lead to a strong opportunity for growth, right? So if you can use your competitive advantage to steal a significant part of the market because you are the major innovator and the most attractive buy from a customer's point of view, actually this isn't about just efficiency and reducing headcount. It's about maybe expanding headcount, but on the back of the AI doing that work for you.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. And it's about the future workforce is going to expect these
Yeah,
type of processes to be in place, right? You don't have to look far. I in fact I can look as close to my children to see how they use
yeah,
AI products today to just give you a
yeah,
sense of the expectation of the new workforce coming
mm,
through and what are they going to expect of a work of going into an organization. They're going to expect
yeah,
these
yeah, yeah,
things to be set in
yeah,
place, right? They're already going to be doing these tasks in an automated or an augmented fashion,
yeah,
right? So this is about not just efficiency, but it's also just getting
yeah,
ready for the next
yeah,
wave of
yeah,
workforce.
yeah, yeah. But it's interesting, isn't it? I think that sense of if you can be the first and most decisive mover in the market, then you do start to command the market in a way that others then have to react to you. But they may have already lost, right? So
Yeah,
it's an interesting side of moving fast and moving
yeah,
early to take the
indeed.
full advantage.
And talking about kind of moving fast, I mean, one thing
Yeah,
that a few slides to kind of finish
yeah,
me off before we go to
yeah,
Q&A. One major challenge with all of this is actually how organizations will often find that this process takes a long time, right? And I think once again, going back to my point
yeah,
earlier, our technology has been disrupted by AI as well
yeah,
as our customers, right? And so, this is something that we're able now to do within weeks for
yeah,
organizations, right? We're able to take that unstructured data, define their jobs, organization, people information, and actually just get you to a point very, very quickly where you can see intelligence within weeks rather than within months or years when it comes to traditional methods, right? And the way we do this is, you know, obviously first taking unstructured job data, defining that, allowing you to actually view your workforce as a whole, right? Understand all of your tasks, all those market insights, and then actually, when we get into and understand, that is actually where you can start to understand what are the different scenarios that impact in my workforce today or could impact my workforce. Which tasks have the highest automation potential? Where do we have workforce deployment opportunities? Where, you may be going through an M&A, right? And once again, understanding those jobs at a more granular level allows you to prepare for an M&A integration. And actually, all of that is because it's in our technology, doesn't necessarily mean that it just lives within our technology. It lives also within the systems of record that you use today, such as a CRM and a HCM. So this is the most important thing here is the technology has disrupted us in a way that we're able to do this for organizations in weeks compared to months and years in traditional methods, right? Which is hugely exciting for us because we're able to help HR teams be ready in a much faster fashion than we've ever have done before. And look, last thing I'll kind of leave you with before we get to some Q&A for like the last 10 minutes or so is actually like we have a process where you can come to us and we can do something for you really, really quickly. So
Mm,
we have something called a talent sprint, which we already have a handful of customers using today. And what this means is within a few weeks, you're able to give us some sample data and we're able to give you some insights really, really quickly. So and we'll be collaborative with you. We'll give you all that data. We'll help you along the way. We'll give you very, very immediate ROI. This is in a week, 2 weeks versus a 12-month kind of rollout. And we're kind of flexible compared to the business challenge that you're kind of going through today.
mm.
So if you're interested, please scan the QR code and you can get introduced to some of our team. But with that, I think we have a few questions.
Cool. Yeah. I'm fascinated by that analysis that you do. Could people do that, say, on their own HR team to understand its readiness for the future as a internal diagnostic just around the team as a proof point? They could look at their leadership layer and say, how well does that compare and prepare us for the future? But there's lots of mobilization opportunities just within a discrete activity.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. And look, the um, it's we have some organizations look at specific functions. We have some organizations look at their complete workforce because they want to drive efficiencies, but they just don't know where. We even have some of our existing customers want to shine a light on their own HR function to say,
Yeah,
actually, where can I give my HR function indication of where to use AI, right? And how to
yeah,
use AI
cool.
and to do that in a kind of safe manner. So there's
Yeah,
so many different applications for it,
yeah,
which is yeah, hugely
cool.
important.
Yeah.
So then we've got two questions in
That's-
the chat.
oh,
I will pose one to you,
yeah,
David.
oh dear.
Um, So I think the first one is from another David, which is, what do you think will make up strategic work that HR will move to as AI removes the more transactional work?
I think there's a few themes in this. I think there is the people intelligence that helps you understand whether work is optimized and how it is organized. So actually, if we've got the right people doing the right work at the right time and with the right skills, and actually, to some extent, that's something that is achievable today. But I think that's something that will grow in importance. Tom, I know we were talking before, again, this is maybe the level of insight of almost competitive analysis of how, not only how well does your organization compare to others, but within aspirational organizations that you'd like to steal their talent from, what talent is available and what would be the best approaches. So I reckon a really competitive and proactive AI driven approach that pulls people out of organizations because the AI is tracking the movements within particular teams and can say the people that we really want to work for us are in a moment of instability because there's leaders left. These little insights, even around the competitive bench strength of organizations that aren't your own, to say, actually, our ability to maximize the value of these products that we sell is higher because
Mm.
we know our direct competitors are struggling with those skill sets is again the level of intelligence and people insight that will drive that from a very strong business view, let alone then the insights that can power better managers and empower individuals to be more effective because we've excited them about their role and their feedback and their opportunities. So I think there is a lot of value, and some of this is maybe more tactical and practical as much as it is strategic in providing more transparency
Yeah.
and being able to hook the AI to provide better human triggers for our people as well.
Yeah,
So
no,
that's my summary.
no, I think it's a great summary. I think
Yeah,
the thing I would say as well, what we mentioned at the start, is it allows HR to be not only a relationship to the employee, but also relationship to the leaders and the business, right? And actually build better relationships and be that advisor and spend more time guiding through the best decision to make at any point in time, right? So I think that
Yeah,
that to me is really what strategic work is
yeah,
for HR. And look, as a leader
yeah,
in a business, having a HR person who can give me that insight whenever I need it, whenever I'm making a decision on hiring, whenever I'm
yeah,
making a decision on what to do next, how to structure my team, how skills are changing in the market and how I should be ready for it. That is
yeah.
hugely valuable for me as a
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And it's fascinating. And so just to wrap up, Tom, on that question, what's fascinating to me is we know that there are hedge fund managers who use people data intelligence to understand whether they are going to short a particular organization or invest in it, right? And if you don't have that from point of view from an employer, if you don't have that from HR point of view, then you're blindsided to the things that are affecting your business outside of just getting people to be more aligned and better at work.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I
Mm.
completely agree. Um, so we have about 4 minutes. The time has gone extremely fast. There is one question I'll answer quickly from Sophie. I think I have answered this, but Sophie asked what data you need from an org to create the framework. I think really, the the emergence of generative AI means that we need unstructured data. So job descriptions are the
Mm.
best form to understand what work is happening in your organization. That's kind of the foundation that we use to do all of this work. So that's always really required these days to actually provide you that level of insight, which is part of the benefit of these generative AI products
Mm.
that we can now deploy. With the last 4 minutes, I'm going to go to some of the pre-submitted questions. So thank you everyone that submitted questions ahead of time. There are some really, really good ones in here. I think we could spend another hour talking about.
Well,
Uh, one right at the bottom, which I think actually is maybe for you, David. Now I've got some perspective on it as well. Is are you seeing HR departments currently meet the moment with AI, or are they reluctant to adopt it? And this is at everything from
yeah,
the leader level down to the kind of IC
yeah.
level when it comes to HR.
And I don't want to be overly ageist, but I do believe that we see some generational influences around this, even within the HR leadership. And I think overall there has been an appetite for younger HR leaders to be more energized around the adoption of AI, if I can put it like that, maybe less skeptical and less worried about the consequences, but more fascinated by the opportunities. I think overall, we've seen those numbers already, like 91% want to use it, expect to use it more. So it's not maybe a lack of appetite to adopt AI in whatever ways that it will add value to your business. Sometimes people are actually caught within their current IT or HR infrastructure, their systems infrastructure, architecture around that. And the challenge for many is they are waiting for maybe their cloud HR platform to provide them with differentiating AI capabilities that may take another 24 months to appear.
Mm.
And the challenge is maybe not so much the appetite, but the speed of delivery of differentiating functionality within established platforms. And quite often you do have to embrace some maybe edge providers to provide you with the differentiating functionality until the core platforms can catch up. And that might be 2 months, well, sorry, 2 years away. And that's the challenge, right? Can you wait 2 years to be disadvantaged? Is that disadvantage too crippling for your business? Are there opportunities that actually have a strong enough business case that actually engaging with a more niche provider will enable you to accelerate yourself forward? And that's probably where we see the biggest tension, less in the HR not wanting to adopt, but more the availability of the technology not being there unless you go and work with people who are a bit more AI native in their outlook.
No, I completely agree. And there's always a tension of how much it should be organic
Yeah.
versus kind of like push top down, right? And I think there's
Yeah.
probably
Yeah. Yeah.
a combination of the both, which I think is the healthy approach here.
Yeah.
Um, okay, we have on that we have completely run out of time. It's dead on the hour. I want to give everyone their day to or the end of their day to take. So thank you, David, for all your great insights. It's been an incredible session, and thank you everyone for the comments, the questions, and the participation in the surveys. That was hugely valuable and great to see so many of you. Actually, a reflection for me. So many of you actually thinking already around how AI is disrupting you and actually being ready for it.
Yeah.
That's applaud to all of
Yeah.
you that are already going down
Exactly.
that journey.
Yeah. Yeah. Too right.
All right. Well, thank you all and have a lovely day.
Thanks, Tom.